Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special edition, free agency edition of Between the Horns. I'm Cameron Irwin, one of the hosts for the Los Angeles Rams, those Super Bowl champions. Of course, we've had a little bit of a wild offseason. As soon as you win a championship, values go up, and naturally you lose and gain some different pieces. And so today I've got the whole crew with me. I've got the voice of the Rams, JB Long, and of course, there they are. There's the Motley crew, and there's already been some jokes. Off air, DeMarco's laughing as well. Super Bowl champion and Maurice Jones-Drew, three-time All-Pro and Pro Bowler and running back. So it's time to get to it. And guys, there's been a lot happening since free agency, and I feel like we kind of just need to go from top to bottom, start with what happened first. And I think that's going to be, how about the offensive line? Signing Brian Allen, and I know Note Boom, that's one that everyone has kind of been keying in on. So JB, I'm going to head to you to start off. What does it mean for this offensive line as soon as you have the signings of Note Boom and Allen, just a little bit of solidification, especially after the retirement of our loved Andrew Whitworth?
First, Cameron, let me ask, it seems like you stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so congratulations to bolstering your hosting credentials.
I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Yeah, the delayed flight really had this beautiful background. I'm just glad my Wi-Fi is working, y'all.
Nice.
We are too. And to my man MJD, I'm glad we got this in before your 37th birthday. Happy birthday week.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
Nice. Welcome, sir. Climb that ladder, big fella.
How's your family rewarding you this week at home?
JB, well, today's my daughter's birthday, so I had like 7 girls over here, slumber party. They just went to the mall to spend money. And now I'm here with my boys as I have dogs barking, trying to get like lunch scrapped together real quick. You know, life is could be better, but we're gonna figure it out. You know, we're gonna figure this whole dad thing out as we get going. 37, I hope there's a lot of dad material for me to learn.
All downhill, bro.
Speaking of dad material, before we get to this offensive line, I think JB, you may have had a contract extension. Are you calling some play-by-play for Little League? I feel like that's what I saw.
Yeah, that's right. The Iron Birds had me on the PA system over the weekend. I had my choice between that or a 2-hour snack shack shift, so that was a pretty easy choice. I know my skill set, and I stayed in my lane, so didn't embarrass my 5-year-old too badly. I hope. But yeah, to your original question, Cameron, I think it makes sense to start with the offensive line. Mm-hmm. If I remember, it's kind of where we finished off our most recent episode Between the Horns, talking about the bet the Rams made on themselves internally, not addressing that position group through free agency or the draft last season, saying we have the group, not only the starting 5, but the backups we need to pursue a championship, and they did. And I was impressed with how Brian Allen would not take no for an answer and won that starting center job back in training camp. And I think that redirected a lot of the directions the Rams went offensively from that point forward. But everything I know says that Sean McVay loves him and that Matthew Stafford loves him. And the other people in that room do too. So I'm not surprised that he's back as kind of the centerpiece for that offense. And then Andrew Whitworth moving on is, I think, a move that we all anticipated. It's too bad that it had to happen at this juncture, but it could not have happened in a better way, with him defeating the team that drafted him in the Super Bowl as the Walter Payton Man of the Year, as the first 40-year-old to start on the offensive line at left tackle in that championship season. So hats off, Andrew Whitworth. We will always remember you as one of the most important free agent signings in franchise history.
Yeah, you got to love it. And as you look through, so Brian Allen, 3-year deal, Joe Noteboom, 3-year deal, and then also Coleman Shelton picking up a 2-year deal as well. So a little bit more in terms of filling out that offensive line. And so I'm actually going to go to MJD here. When you're looking at some pieces moving around and that solidification of the line, I mean, what does that mean in terms of an offense to be able to set up a scheme and have that kind of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, especially with Brian Allen's return?
Well, I think it's the cohesiveness, right? You want the same voice, the same voices in the room. So you want the quarterback, you want the center. The center one is the one who's going to kind of direct the protections and get the word out from inside out, right? So he's going to tell the tackle where he's sliding to, as Matthew Stafford points out, to where the protection should start. So I think that's important. And it's always tough to have to bring in a new center, teach them the offense, understand where Matthew Stafford likes, what he doesn't like. When you have a guy there that you're comfortable with and that has done a really good job, you keep him. I think what Noteboom, though, is the most important signing. And this is why. For the last couple of years when Andrew Whitworth has gotten hurt, Joe Noteboom's come in and played and done an awesome job. I mean, it was a stretch, not this year, but last year into 2020, where we didn't hear it was like we didn't call his name at all for like 3 or 4 games, JB. You remember that? And it was kind of like, oh, this dude has been playing. If you're not calling his name, he's not giving up sacks. He's getting where he needs to get to. That's what you want. And then we saw it again last year. And so I think he's earned the right to he's earned the right to get this contract. And now it's time for him to solidify his spot at left tackle and how he's been and be able to get the recognition that he deserves, which is good. I think he's a much better run blocker than Andrew Whitworth was at the end of his career. When he first got here, Andrew Whitworth was a steamroller. I think towards the end, he kind of certain things go with you as you get older. That's what happened. They leave, right? He was still one of the better pass blockers, but Joe Noteboom was able to create separation and space in the running game. So you should expect the running game to be a little bit better this season. And then the other thing is he did a really good job of blocking these top pass rushers. Now, the NFC has lost a lot. The NFC West has lost a lot of pass rushers. So if you're the Rams, keeping your guys and keeping this offensive line intact should definitely help you going forward.
And now I know you guys have talked about Noteboom and how he's been on the roster for the last 4 years. Excuse you.
I'm sorry.
But one of the interesting elements is you talk about the experience he's gained. And you actually, if you got a chance to listen to the pressers from Noteboom as well as Brian Allen this morning, there was a lot of conversation about confidence that has been built, even if we haven't seen Noteboom on the field with extensive numbers of reps. He's built kind of a body of work and this confidence, having trained under Whitworth. So what should be the expectation for him? And I'll come to you, DeMarco. What should be the expectation for Noteboom heading into the season?
Well, he's ready. I was just looking up all the coaches he had. Go back to Aaron Cromer, Andy Dickerson, who was here, who's up in Seattle now. Now Kevin Carberry steps in. So they've all done a fantastic job of getting him ready. He is ready for this. If he's not ready for it now, you're never going to be. But the only thing that gives me pause is you can't replace a guy like Andrew Whitworth. It's not going to happen. You may be able to replace him athletically, and I think Joseph Noteboom at this stage of his career might be a better athlete and has the chance to be as good as Whit if you keep getting those reps in and not miss days. You keep yourself healthy, but just that leadership presence, that leadership coming from the left tackle. Remember during the games, guys, you could see Andrew Whitworth. He was the only player that I saw go back at Sean McVay while the game is underway, giving him the, come on, man, speed it up, or let's run the ball, giving a flex. So that's going to be tough to replace. But physically, athletically, above the neck, I have no doubts Joseph Noteboom is ready for this. Like Maurice said, man, when he went in there to, sub for Andrew Whitworth, there was no drop-off. And there were some things that you might have liked better with him in there. So I'm expecting big things out of him. And I like the way you phrased that, JB, about Brian Allen. Here's a guy that everybody tried to write off, and he just wouldn't go away and became one of your best linemen towards the end of the year and actually led you sometimes. So that contract was well-earned and well-deserved. But to answer the Noteboom question, he's absolutely ready for this. There's nothing he hasn't seen. He's been coached by the best, and he saw one of the best to ever do it, playing right in front of him. So he is definitely ready to protect a $160 million quarterback.
Well, and that's obviously the primary job, right? And of course, we would be remiss to not mention the extension of Matthew Stafford, a 4-year deal. And it's been intriguing to me. There's always been this conversation with the Los Angeles Rams that it's win and win now. However, with this extension, is that evolution changing? Is that conversation changing? And I'll go to you, JB. Is it just about winning now, or is it about building something, maybe a dynasty here in Los Angeles?
Yes. It's the NFL. It's always about winning now. And when you have this nucleus from front office and leadership and ownership down through the players and the quarterback and the skill set that this group has, they're very much a contender and maybe even a favorite again in the NFC, I think, in 2022. I like how the time horizons seem to align now, right? We knew that Matthew Stafford, if he performed, was going to have a chance to be someone who came to Los Angeles and rewrote record books over the course of what's left of his prime, what's left of his great 30s. And now I think he and McVay and Cooper Kupp and some of the new pieces, including Joe Noteboom, you could see how they have a chance to build on what they started. And last year was just a starting point. Can't imagine a better starting point. But now they have a chance to tailor some more things to Matthew Stafford. You see just how different the complexion of the offense looked in terms of design, alignment, play calling with Stafford at the controls. It was immediately more explosive, more spread, more vertical. I think they're just getting to the second phase of that, and some other moves, including Allen Robinson, that we're going to talk about later, I think all feed into that now that Matthew Stafford is here for more than just the 2 years that they inherited from Detroit.
And now I feel like that's a perfect segue, JV. Thanks so much, because as much as you've got the guy at the helm, he is there for you for the next 4 years. Now it's about surrounding him with some arsenal. And I know we have seen that Robert Woods reportedly heading off to the Tennessee Titans, and we're still waiting on that OBJ, seeing what's going to happen there. But this wide receiver group, there's a little bit of some question marks. And I'll start with you, Maurice. I mean, what are some of the things that you might think, hey, heading into 2022, this is what we want to see from that wide receiver group?
Well, I think this. I think the signing of Allen Robinson was a lot that happened with the Super Bowl, right? If you go back, Odell Beckham goes down, and then Van Jefferson really didn't show up like the way we expected him to. He had that ball where he kind of got over him. He overran it. Then you had Ben Skoranek, who dropped a couple passes, right? So it was really like Cooper Kupp. So if you're the Rams, you're saying, okay, Robert Woods is coming off an ACL. Odell's coming off an ACL. We need to have someone here that we can actually rely on if we need to. That's not saying Van Jefferson can't be that going forward. Just with that opportunity, he didn't do it. And so you go out and you pay Allen Robinson to be able to surround and be that fade guy that Odell Beckham Jr. was, the guy that, when you get inside that 5-yard line, you could throw the fade, you could throw the slant. He's a really good route runner. He fits in that system. It gives you a different element than what you've had, right? We haven't seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, we haven't seen a big receiver like Allen Robinson in this system. We haven't seen it. And so I'm excited to see how he's going to be utilized. He's a terrific route runner. And so, yeah, you want to continue to put weapons around him, but also they've been very strategic too, right? You lose Von Miller and you say, okay, well, we have money for Von. How can we get better as a team? We go and get another receiver. Okay, now you have that. Robert Woods, obviously, they want to do right by Robert, so they traded him to a contender, which is fine. That's awesome. And now you have room to kind of maneuver throughout the draft, and if you have to pay some other guys later down the road. Now, when it comes to Odell Beckham Jr., the problem is he tore his ACL so late in the year, obviously at the very end of the season, that he's not going to be ready until October, November. And that's going to be, I think that's when you start to see his time ramp up. I think the Rams are going to, obviously they're doing right by him by taking care of his rehab and those type of things. But you want to make sure that he's completely healthy by the time you bring him back. So he may have another late season run in him, which would be crazy. And if it's for the Rams, it's going to be perfect. And so I think this is a challenge to some of the receivers that the Rams have on the roster to show up and play better. But also, this is also for Matthew Stafford. We need to add another weapon around Cooper Kupp and not just lean on Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, especially when you've got the Triple Crown winner. And there has been conversation that this room, yet again, could be the best wide receiving core. And I believe that it was even asked of Matthew Stafford today in one of the pressers. And he said, hey, we've still got so much work to do. There's going to be a ton of competition in that room. But I know, JB, you got a chance to catch up with Allen Robinson just this morning. I mean, what were some of your takeaways from that first conversation?
We talked a lot about what it means to be a 50-50 winner, to be a jump ball specialist, and what his catch radius could mean to Matthew Stafford in the next iteration of this offense. It's already been said and reported that Matthew Stafford will be the best quarterback that he's ever played with. And without mentioning anything about who he has played with, I think at this stage of his career, that's what he wants. He wants to go put up big numbers, but he wants to put up big numbers on a contender. And I think the other part of it is he's not just a contested catch winner. He's now in an offense that's predicated around concepts that create separation and yards after catch. And I think he's looking forward to maybe being in that Sean McVay ecosystem as well, because of all the things that it could mean for the tenure of this contract. What else stands out? One, he's going to wear the number 1, it sounds like, which is pretty cool. Go back to his high school number. I'm sure that's of interest to some of our audience. But MJD knows Greg Olson, who's returning to the offensive coaching staff by way of Jacksonville and the Raiders and some other places. I know that's where you connect, MJD. And Allen was quick to point out that he had his best season as a pro with Ole in the room.
Yeah, I will say this. I think it's always good when you go to a place to have a familiar face that you feel comfortable with. For me, when I went to Oakland, it was Ole, right? And I got a chance to be in that quarterback room. Whenever I had an issue, I could rely on him. And I'm not saying Allen Robinson's going to have an issue, but I think Allen Robinson is going to be new, right? And he's going to need to try to find his way to fit in and find his niche in this offense. Where's it going to be? Yeah. I think Greg Olsen is going to be a great tool for him to use while finding that niche to kind of get in there. Because as we saw, again, I'm going to say this offense is predicated off of your quarterback and coverage. And certain guys have certain roles, right? When you find that role, you better embrace it. And I think that's what Odell did. That's why he thrived so well. Obviously, Cooper Kupp's role was, it's Cooper Kupp's role, but even Cam Akers had a role. Bryson Hopkins had a role that he embraced. Kendall Bland, everyone had a role when they embraced it. When your time was called, you're able to make a play. But you have to understand, this is what Allen Robinson has to understand. Your role is not going to be Allen Robinson in Chicago a couple years ago. That's not your role, right? And I think that's what it's going to take a little bit of time to understand that, but I think he'll be fine.
What do you mean, run and run for your life?
No, I mean 200 catches in 2 years.
Catch and duck before you get killed? Sorry.
Avoid at all costs.
Cameron, one other thought on this passing game real quick. I don't know if you're transitioning to defense or not, but I will say that when I feel this group developing, I don't want to overlook the running back position and what I think they're going to mean to this offense through the air in 2022. When I reflect back on that Super Bowl and what it looked like to have Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson on the field at the same time, this is all about creating matchup stress for defenses, right? And whether it's Tutu Atwell getting in the mix or Jacob Harris or whoever else complements that group, there's going to come a point in time where you're looking at a linebacker who's not qualified to run with Cam Akers or Darrell Henderson. And Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay have proven that they will go there until you solve it.
JB, you're a nice man for mentioning Tutu Atwell, but all this is bad for him, and you know it. But the first thing I thought when you bring in Robinson is red zone. And you know how McVay loves the red zone. And I guess the biggest receiver that we've had in this offense was Sammy Watkins. Remember how good he was in the red zone. So I don't know if you're going to be better. I'm hurt that Bobby Trees isn't here. I think he was the heart and soul, the pulse of your football team. That's going to be hard to replace like Whitworth. But you did get bigger. You did get a little bit longer, and you have more of a red zone threat. Didn't the Rams finish like 15th in the league in red zone offense this year? You know McVay hates that. So if you're looking for improvement on a Super Bowl team, a Super Bowl winning offense, it would be in the red zone. He is definitely going to help you down there. Sammy Watkins was hit or miss, but in the red zone, the guy was lights out. So that's where I see that impact coming with Robinson.
Well, and it's interesting, too. I mean, you bring up Robert Woods, and I think there was definitely an emotional reaction, not only from team and staff, but also the Los Angeles Rams fan base. The Ramley, that one definitely hitting home. Such a true heart and a ton of leadership coming from that standpoint. But, JB, to go back to your point, I didn't want to breeze over the running back group because that's actually one of the areas I think maybe a position group that hasn't been talked about enough this offseason that potentially could have quite a bit of a level up between Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, and Sony Michel is currently a free agent. So I'm curious to see what they do there because Sony came in mid-season and put up some numbers for this crew. I mean, what's the expectation? And I'll go to Mo over here. What's the expectation for this running back group?
Well, I think you skipped over it because the last time we saw him, it wasn't a good running game, right? They couldn't really run 100%. The ball against the Cincinnati Bengals, and so it's kind of like, all right, what are we going to do? And then you hear the clip of Sean McVay saying, "We're done running the ball," which I mean, that was like when you hear that, it's just like, oh my God, I don't even want to watch this anymore, you know. But I you know what, JB, you know what's so funny? I can remember the exact play when it happened. It was Sony Michel on the little dive play. He got tackled for a loss. And I think I looked at you. I was like, "Yeah, they're not going to run the ball anymore." Done. Like that was it, you know. And but what I believe is they're going to find other ways. And it may not. I don't know if they're going to bring Sony Michel back. I don't know how they're going to do it. They're going to add another piece to this running back room. But I think with the explosiveness of Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson, you have something that a lot of teams don't have. You have guys that can come out in two backs and then split them out wide, and now you have a mismatch somewhere on the field, right? And again, JB talked about throwing that go ball to Cam Akers and different things. Those guys they'll be really good. And they were coached really well. Now they have a new running back coach, a younger guy who's coming in. And you know, that's going to be a learning. That's always going to be a learning curve because I say this as a running back, your running back coach has to be able to understand what you feel, right? And it's hard to say, and they always throw anyone at running backs, and it's so funny when I see like this guy played receiver, he played tight end, or he's whatever it is. But if you don't understand how I feel, it's hard for me to communicate with you, right? If Cam Akers comes back and says, Coach, I saw this, but I felt that, and on tape that might happen, but the coach would say, well, the play's designed to do this, right? And so you want to make sure that as a running back coach, and if you want to get this running game going, that you understand how your players are going to run, your players understand how you're going to coach, and you all are able to communicate to keep going forward. I would hate to see the Rams do it again where they're like, we're not going to run the ball, even though you have such talented runners. And I think, again, Sean's he did a terrific job late in the year of finding a way to get those guys going. But I think this room is ready. They may add, like I said, another piece, but I think they're ready to take off. And they started to take off a little bit last year. We saw during the first playoff game against the Cardinals, Cam Akers took the game over. And then after that, it kind of went downhill. So we'll see what they do from there.
Yes, lots of room for improvement and definitely enough potential in that group to see it come to fruition in 2022. Now, I think it's time we're going to breeze over tight ends. Johnny Munt had the departure from the Los Angeles Rams, but we got to, I know, I see you, DeMarco Farr. That one hurts a bit, but we're going to move on to defense because we got to get this conversation rolling. Let's see, the biggest headline, the departure of Von Miller, and now everyone's going, where are we going to find a pass rusher? Who is that going to be, and where is it coming from? So, JB, I'll start with you. Where are we going to find that pressure?
Well, first of all, Von Miller, good on you. Nothing but love. Thank you for everything that you did to give Los Angeles the championship that it was hunting. I believe him when he says that he wanted to come back and that it felt like breaking up with a loved one. But that offer from Buffalo made a lot of sense to accept, and I think it makes sense from the Rams' standpoint to stand pat and not to match that and not to chase that, just to thank Von Miller for the service time that he did give. And he was the best player of the postseason, and except for those critical moments where Aaron Donald stepped up and rose to the occasion. But throughout the postseason, he was the best defender, maybe league-wide. So good return on investment there. Where do they go next? Chris Garrett, come on down. Like, your time is now. There's a big void there. You could argue it's the biggest void on the team opposite Leonard Floyd, though there are some known quantities like Justin Hollins and others. But it's an area where the Rams are going to have to grow, and it's probably an area the Rams are going to have to address between now and training camp or the start of the season or the trade deadline. This is a position we've seen them go after midseason in recent years, so I don't think we have the final solution yet by any means.
Yes, also important to note, because I know you guys have loved Obo throughout his time as a Ram, and his departure also kind of hits a little bit hard right here. We're still looking for somebody to step up into that. Do you think this is going to be a problem that's addressed, whether it's free agency or the draft? And MJD, I saw you raise your hand. Go for it, bud. What do you got?
Well, I was going to say, when I saw Dante Fowler get released by the Falcons, I was like, oh my God, he's coming back. Right, I felt like that was going to be a great move. A guy that had 16 and a half sacks during that time, his time here in LA, but obviously that didn't happen. Expect the Rams to address this in the draft too. It's a deep receiver or DN draft or outside linebacker draft or pass rusher draft if you're looking for it. And I know they don't have a pick until the third round, but there's still quality talent, as we've seen the Rams hit on guys late in the draft. So expect them to address this multiple ways. They may find guys like they did Justin Hollins, right, who gets released from the Denver Broncos. You're able to bring him over. We see that a lot in that last week of the preseason where guys are getting released. They may address it there, but to me, this is it's important to have someone that you can count on, right? Von Miller is the cream of the crop at that position, and we saw how important it was, how he was just beating one-on-ones left and right, and really how it opened up a lot for everyone else, right? To have Leonard Floyd, him, and Aaron Donald put a lot of pressure on offenses. So for me, it is an important one, and I expect the Rams to try to address it a couple different ways.
All right, I'm going to shift us on to the interior. So, DeMarco, I'm coming your direction, and I'm just looking through what we've got. We've got Greg Gaines. He will be an unrestricted free agent in 2023, so we get to retain him at least one more year. And then, obviously, everyone's been wondering what's going on with AD. the ability to have him and what he is able to do in terms of applying pressure. I mean, there's nobody better than him. And it's so fun. If you look through the PFF grades, it's just astronomical what he's been able to do. But what are some of the things that maybe stick out? Because I know Sebastian Joseph Day also signed a 3-year deal heading just across the way, or maybe more so in SoFi Stadium, on over to the Chargers. But what's the expectation for this group?
Every time I see that highlight from the Super Bowl, I just feel so bad for that dude. His mom, his dad saw that, just get beasted in the biggest game of your life, and you just get beasted. But look, he does that to everybody. So I'm with you guys, man. I'm so happy for Von Miller, and I'm so appreciative of what he gave this football team, this city. But look, the cupboard ain't bare, man. You still got this guy coming back. I saw Andrew Whitworth on TMZ the other day talking about Aaron Donald coming back to play football. That's the same thing I said. I mean, once the euphoria wears off of being a champion, he's going to get that hunger again. It's more than about rings. This guy is about legacy. So he still has more to do. He still has more he wants to do. So he'll be back. So, but to replace a Von Miller or to find that other outside linebacker, you're going to have to throw some bodies at it. The job is open. See if you can claim it, and if you can, see if you can hold it. But it's not like the cupboard is bare. And look, don't count out Raheem Morris with some sort of scheme flip or fit, because if you can't find the right outside linebacker for the job, then so be it. If you've got more defensive ends than you do have outside linebackers, guess what? You're going to be playing a lot of 4-down stuff. But as long as you have Floyd, as long as you have AD, I wouldn't say it doesn't matter who you line up out there, but it's less important to find that guy when you still have the guy on your defensive line.
DeMarco, we've said this before, but now I feel like there's a future Hall of Famer who are talking about benefiting from the Aaron Donald effect. Is there any way to work some of Aaron's compensation to include like a finder's fee or an agency item for the contracts that the Dante Fowlers and the Von Millers and the Morgan Foxes of the world benefit from after aligning next to him?
I mean, that's something. If you're Aaron's representation, you should start throwing that out there, man. I mean, it's like we talk about the McVay tree. Hang out with McVay, get a head coaching job.
Yes.
Play with AD, get a big contract. Yep. It's just the way it works. So there should be a line of guys coming this way that want to play here in Los Angeles.
20% at least.
I love it, Maurice. Heck yeah, no doubt.
All right, well, that's going to be a coveted position heading into 2022. But an area and a position group that I actually find a bit intriguing is maybe more so that interior linebacker group. And it's a little intriguing. Troy Reeder was not tendered. And you take a look also, Trayvon Howard, though, was. And so I know that's a name, JB, that you have thoroughly enjoyed saying multiple times, because this is somebody with a ton of potential, not to mention Ernest Jones, another that has done some heavy work just in his first year.
Yeah, I know they can't wait to have Ernest Jones come back through an off-season program and a training camp in line to be the starter. The Rams would not have won the championship, of course, without the clutch efforts of Trayvon Howard, so good to see him back. But there are still some other options out there. I'm not going to mention them here. I think the comment section has already documented them adequately. We'll see whether or not any of those pan out, whether or not this is another area where they can bolster through the draft, or whether it's an area where they continue to cut a corner. I'll use the air quotes there, cut a corner in terms of devoting resources, knowing how good the defense is around them at just about every other position.
Yeah, you got it for sure. And Ernest Jones, one of my favorites, actually got a chance to talk to him one of post game, and just the humility coming off of him. I know wearing the green dot as well. So looking forward to what he can put together come this season. All right, guys, I feel like we're headed towards the secondary. And I would say the other area that most people have talked about in terms of need is at the cornerback spot, the departure of Darius Williams. So who do you think is going to be the number 2 guy next to Jalen Ramsey?
You know what? I would like to say this. I think the 2 inside backers have done a tremendous job that they kept Trayvon Howard and Ernest Jones. I thought they've done a great job to fit this system. And I think you go with your rookie you drafted last year, Rochelle, right? You drafted him. You like his length. You like his potential, his ability. It's time to get him reps. So many times we try to upgrade to say, we need this, we need that. When sometimes you have those guys on your roster like Darius Williams, right? Darius Williams was an undrafted guy who JB and DeMarco, we would watch in training camp the first couple of years, and he was just a guy that made plays. And let's be honest, there's a couple guys that they kept. I want to say Peterson was another one that they let go. They ended up going to Arizona. I mean, they've had a lot of DBs on their roster that they've developed in order to play well. I know David Long got a lot of playing time in there. I expect him to play a lot still. But I think it's time for your young rookie Rochelle to step up and make some plays like he did early in the year. We have to try to find a way to get him consistent and get him going. But you have Jalen Ramsey. You have Burgess. You have Fuller. You have the guys that you've been there. Is Rapp still there? You have to excuse me. You still have the nucleus of guys that have been in that room. If I go elsewhere, it's via draft. I'm not going free agency to grab other guys. I know I've seen Bobby Wagner out there, and everyone's like, we got to go get Bobby. But I think Traven Howard's played lights out for you, right? He played well. He ended that NFC Championship game. Ernest Jones had tremendous sacks and plays in the Super Bowl. Those guys have earned the right to get the chance to start for your defense and make plays. And if they don't, then you try to acquire some different pieces. But I think this young defense and this young nucleus of guys that you have that you've drafted or undrafted guys that are playing for you, they've earned the right to go out there and be on your starting defense.
Wouldn't that be funny if the Rams did get Bobby Wagner after Sean McVay exposed him in Seattle time and time again? That would be hilarious. But when does your middle linebacker have to lead the league in tackles anymore? In today's NFL, right? It's more about coverage. So you can go with smaller guys in there. So I'm with you. But corner, I mean, all the good corners are taken. But, I mean, this one you might have to throw some money at or draft and develop. And I did hear some scuttlebutt on the sideline that Rochelle was nipping at the heels of Darius Williams anyway before he got hurt. So I'm with you, Maurice. If the guy's ready to go, if he can handle it, if they trust him to go out there and play opposite Jalen Ramsey, your answer's already there. But I like to have insurance policies, especially at that position, because one bad corner ruins your entire season.
I agree with that point. You can never have too many at that position. But I also think the Rams sometimes give you the answers if you look a year prior in the draft. And there's tons of examples of this, whether it's drafting Jordan Fuller and Taylor Rapp and knowing that John Johnson's tenure was great, but that it was coming to an end. I feel that way right now about Darius Williams and Robert Rochelle. Can't wait to see what Bobby Brown brings to the interior defensive front, knowing that Sebastian Joseph Day was probably going to get a contract that the Rams were not going to be able to match. So when you're looking for the next rising star, it's usually worth going back to that kind of redshirt freshman draft class. And there's some intriguing options in the most recent crops for the Los Angeles Rams.
You going to start Nick Scott?
Why not?
Why
not?
DeMarco, are you going to tell him to sit down?
Right? No.
Are you kidding me? I apologize. Excuse me for not saying Nick Scott.
Oh, here comes the clip. Tom Brady came out of retirement
because
of Nick Scott.
Right there.
This is not even the clip I want to see. I want to see the one to hit on Debo that changed the whole game.
And AJ Green before that.
Exactly. Like,
yes, sir.
You have guys that you can develop and play, man. I think the Rams have done it. They've done it particular. Like, you talk about the big trades they've done, but no one talks about the undrafted guys or the guys they draft late in rounds that they develop and then become into big time players for them. They don't talk about that as much. And those guys stepped up huge throughout this playoff run as well. And the Super Bowl run. That's what I think is most important. That's why I say it's hard for me to go out there and say, pay this guy a bunch of money when you've drafted and developed so many guys.
Well, and Mo, to your point, just looking through some of those draft classes, and I know we've got several coming up where we have rounds in 3, 4, and some of those later rounds even getting into 6 and 7. I mean, David Long was a 3rd rounder. You go to Greg Gaines, 4th round, Nick Scott, 7th round. And that's just in the 2019 class alone. And then even on the offensive side, we do work. I mean, Bryson Hopkins, 4th round, Jordan Fuller. How about that? Obviously on the defensive side, 6th round. So a lot can be done with these later round picks. And the Rams have proven that time and time again. So I can't wait to see what they're able to do.
Coaching. Yes. Congratulations to Coach Henderson, D-line coach of the year. See, that's how you can draft guys late and make them better. That's awesome.
Yep. That's a great point. All right, fellas, I feel like we've got one more place to go, and that is to special teams. And another big departure because this guy was another emotional leader and a heart and soul. I know, JV, you've loved this guy through and through. Johnny Hekker. Oh. Moving on. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, I know DeMarco has made the case before that he's a Hall of Famer, and I would agree with DeMarco. And if and when he does go to Canton, I want him to go in as a Ram. Maurice, you and I were in Denver for that final preseason game looking at each other as Corey Bajorquez checked one out inside the 5-yard line again, thinking, man, is this really how it's going to end for Johnny Hekker? Thank goodness the answer was no. But I remember flying home thinking we may have seen Johnny Hekker in horns for the last time. So much prefer the fact that he was able to come back and go out as a Super Bowl champion. I don't know where the Rams go next at that position. Maybe it's going for it on all of their 4th downs. I would love that. And Sean McVay, if you're still around at this point of the Between the Horns podcast, go for broke, man. 4th and short. Who needs a punter?
Yes, for sure. And then, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, whether it's draft or another veteran free agent, obviously it's a major void to fill and ones that the Rams are going to have to solve in the coming months.
Yes, without a doubt. But one void that they were able to fill was Brandon Powell, signing him to a 1-year deal. And I know this is one that got me so excited because when he showed up, he showed up in some big time moments and with some big time plays. This was a void for us, especially early on the season. And for him to be able to step in and do exactly this right here, just like he did against the Vikings, woo! Yeah, that man can fly. I mean, what does it mean to be able to sign a guy like this and just kind of have that confidence heading into next season with special teams feeling a little bit better in this role? I'll go to you, MJD.
Well, I think that was always the Achilles heel for the Rams. Like, it was the special teams. It was a special teams blunder here, a bad kickoff coverage there. There was a couple years of that. It was 2020 and then the front part of 2021. And so I think kind of solidifying having a returner that, this guy, we can count on him. This is what he's done for us. We trust him. We know what he can and can't do. I think that's important. And let's remember, special teams, they don't win you games. They rarely win you games. They lose more than they win. And I think it's important for our fans and everyone here to understand that third phase has cost more teams losses and jobs and people's jobs than any other position or any other phase in football. So it's important to kind of get that going, get that solidified. It's going to be exciting to get the draft pick from UCF back. It's important to get Ben Skoranek back out there, right? Those guys were monsters for him. And you losing one because of injury, then the other one is because he has to play receiver, right? So just getting that special teams group going back again, I think is going to be huge for the Rams.
Yeah, no.
Really.
T-Far, didn't you say that return against Jacksonville was like one of the season inflection points?
It was the spark. I mean, I told him that at the Super Bowl. I told him when the confetti's going down, I grabbed Powell. I said, man, you were kind of the face of the turnaround. Once you had a confident and fearless return game through him, everything started to turn around. I mean, it just gives your team such a spark. So great. I love having him there. I thought that was a tremendous keep for the Rams. That solidifies that spot. And you can keep Cooper Kupp on offense. Thank you very much. That got scary for a while. But having that spot solidified with a guy who's smart, who can field it, and who's also aggressive that you can take it to the house. Or just not give up the big bounce to lose yardage. Just be smart at that spot. So that's great. I mean, but Johnny, I hate the auditions for punters, man. I really do. Because sometimes it doesn't work out in your favor. And think about it. If you have a punter that's not as good or is struggling, that hurts everything. That hurts your defense, hurts your offense, hurts your football team. So not having a constant, a known quantity in Johnny Hekker, like Andrew Whitworth, that will be tough to replace, hands down.
Holder for Matt Gay, special teams thrower too. There's all sorts of elements that come with Johnny Hekker that there's just not another one out there like him.
His bad punts are good punts.
And just a great guy.
Yeah, right.
At the end of the day, just a good dude, right?
Yep.
That you knew in that locker room was going to have your back and deliver your message, when needed. So, hey, listen, the Rams lost a lot. Yeah. They lost a lot in the free agency, but you know what happens to good teams? You lose a lot. You keep losing. You lose coaches. You lose team players. You lose everything, and you got to rebuild. And that's what I'm excited about this year for this Rams roster.
That's kind of how I feel, Maurice, about Robert Woods. And it's kind of like I don't want to tell anyone how to feel about this, right? I try not to get into that. If you're angry, if you're sad, if you're upset, I get it. I think we've all kind of gone through a lot of those emotions. Unfortunately, that's the time of year that we're in. But what I've settled on from Bobby Trees' standpoint is like the saying, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened.
Right.
And right there next to Andrew Whitworth in early 2017 was a signing that I think changed the course of this Rams franchise forevermore. And even though Whitworth and Woods might be done contributing to the Rams in terms of week in and week out wins, I think their impact will be felt for many more years to come. And I'll keep rooting for them in whatever walk of life or whatever team they're playing for next. I know for a fact that the only USC fight on deuces that I've ever seen Maurice Jones-Drew celebrate were Robert Woods against the Houston Texans at the Coliseum on that 94-yard, right, Maurice?
I had to catch myself. You're not supposed to say that on like live TV, JB.
Maurice's UCLA hand started creeping up. He was almost.
It was unbelievable, man. I would, and I'll tell you this too. And this would be the last thing I'll say is, I think you're exactly right. Like it was so many great memories of of everybody, right, from the highs and the lows. I think when you talk about Robert Woods, what I remember most are his blocks, him going in and blocking linebackers and blocking for his teammates when he didn't touch the ball. He might not have caught a ball. I want to say against the Niners, he didn't catch one pass. He had a couple carries, but he was still blocking the selflessness of those guys. Andrew Whitworth, all those things, they were amazing. And so they created a culture that became a winning culture. It's different than any culture I've been around. There's not a lot of yelling. It's more talking, understanding. And in football, DeMarco, as we know, and JB and Cameron, as we know, it's a lot of yelling going on and trying to rev guys up and this and that. They do it differently. It's because of the guys they brought in that free agency class. Was it 2017? And they made a difference and they changed the way this thing went out. And man, what a ride it's been. But I can't wait for the next though. Like it's like who's next? You know, it's like,
and to your point, that was actually what I want to close up with is the thought of when you look at some of the departures and you talk about Robert Woods and the leadership he brought, the leadership Andrew Whitworth brought, the leadership that Johnny Hecker brought. And with those pieces, even Von Miller, he's been coined for helping AD kind of pull out some of that verbal and that communicative leadership out of Aaron Donald as well. So I'm going to open this to the floor for all of you. Are there a few names that maybe sit in the back of your head going, ooh, these are the guys. These could be the next up that's going to step in. And leadership, it shouldn't be underrated. That's a huge quality. And I feel like there's been some guys that have been groomed for this time, this exact moment right now.
I got two guys off the top of my head. Well, number one, Sean McVay can handle that on his own. But on the field, Matthew Stafford is poised. He's done it in Detroit. Now he's got a championship to defend. Your leadership on offense is settled. Wait until Cooper Kupp steps into that role, like Aaron did. He's a reluctant leader. He does it by example. Wait until he becomes vocal. Wait until he starts speaking. There's some new leaders emerging here when you lose some, new guys will step up. And it comes from surprising places. Wait until Cooper Kupp starts taking a vocal lead of this football team.
Well, that's
Mark,
great,
I'm not trying to undermine what you just said. I think it's spot on. But I just had this visual. How many people were at midfield for coin tosses this year for the Los Angeles Rams?
That guy.
That guy. 9. He's your answer.
Exactly.
I
All
think
right.
for me, well, I'll say, I'm sorry. I think for me, it's going to be Aaron at the end of the day because this is his team, right? When you look at it, everyone knows the Rams is 99. He's been there now. He's figured out
one
his
guy
voice
doesn't,
and his
Maurice. Sorry to interrupt, but I don't know if you had a chance to read any articles today, but one guy doesn't know 99.
Yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable. Well, that's ridiculous.
Hey, listen, hey.
Who's that 99 guy? Oh, my God.
Wait, what's his name again?
I don't listen. And he found out on the second play of the game who 99 was. That's the problem. But I think at the end of the day, when we look at this, and the guys, when we first came together, DeMarco, you were here before us, there was one name we knew when we got here. It was Aaron Donald.
Oh, yeah.
And as we go through this journey, guess what? Guess what name is going to be here? Aaron Donald. And when it all else fails, like Sean said on that 4th and 1, Aaron Donald's going to make a play. And I think that's the most important thing. And that's the leadership because he leads by his actions. And now that he starts to speak up, and he doesn't speak up a lot. He only spoke up. What game was it? The Niners game he spoke up, right?
Woo!
And then after that, they shut down everything after that. It was like defense went crazy. And so I think when he understands the timing to speak, that's when things are going to get really, he's learning that, he's understanding that. It's going to be great. Yeah, that's it. I'm done.
Oh, I think that we are currently all done. But before we hop off this incredible episode of Between the Horns, we just want to say a huge thank you to all those guys that did have an impact for Super Bowl 56. I mean, from Andrew Whitworth, Johnny Hecker, Robert Woods, Von Miller, Darius Williams, Sebastian Joseph Day. I'm probably missing a few others, but a huge, huge thank you to the impact that those guys have made, and the best of luck in their next home. We're wishing them all the best. I believe that's all we've got. Anybody else? Any final thoughts before we sign off here on Between the Horns?
Don't
Troy Reader.
Chronic.
Troy Reader, thank you.
Happy birthday,
yes,
Mo.
Thank you. There you go. And happy birthday, Mo.
Yes.
All right.
I'm getting old.
No.
And of course, don't forget to tune in to the NFL draft this year and see what our Los Angeles Rams can do with some of those middle rounds. This has been the free agency edition of Between the Horns. Thanks so much for joining us.